Welcome to SportsBeat KC, the Kansas City Star Sports podcast and YouTube program. We are here talking Chiefs with the folks in the media who know them best, columnist Sam McDowell and Vahe Gregorian and beat writer Jesse Newell. The Chiefs are coming off a 16-14 victory over the Denver Broncos on Sunday. They take on the Buffalo Bills in the game of the year in the NFL, at least so that's what I'm reading today and yesterday. Buffalo Bills on Sunday in Buffalo. That win over the Broncos improved the Chiefs to 9-0, 5 wins at home, 4 of them on the final snap of the game. And we know how this one ended dramatically with the Leo Chenal blocked field goals of Will Lutz from 35 yards. So I think the question that we should start with today is if Leo Chenal does not block the field goal, what kind of mood are Chiefs fans in today, and how do we look at the Chiefs? And would this be a therapy week for Chiefs fans? Vahe, you kick it off. If the Chiefs don't win that game, if they don't get make the lowest percentage play possible, what's it like in Kansas City this week?
That's a great question. I think that all these things that we've been talking about that seem to be signs of their cohesion and chemistry and winning mindset, we'd be saying, well, they're really just not that good and they're vulnerable. And boy, are they going to get exposed this week in Buffalo. And look, they doesn't mean they can't lose in Buffalo, but I think there's something about the way they keep kind of reinforcing this sort of preposterous aura around them. With I don't know, guys, we've seen a lot of different scenarios that seemed like, well, they're not going to make it this time. There's no way out this time. 13 seconds comes to mind, things like that. But in a certain way, this seemed about as improbable as anything they've ever done for it to be one specific play anyway. So, and all of you have lived here in the area a lot longer than I have. The parallel universe in which they usually lost these games. You lived it for decades, and I guess that's what just seems to be kind of confounding and also reassuring for Chiefs fans now. I can't imagine many thought, well, they're going to block this, but if you're like me, I remember thinking, I don't really see how they're going to get out of it, but I guess I don't think it's over. And I don't know. I don't know what I thought was going to happen. I didn't really see a block coming. I just mean that it's just happened so many times this way now.
Yeah, it sort of had the feeling of like whenever a guy throws a no-hitter, there has to be one like terrific defensive play along the way to preserve his perfection. And I don't know that, look, this is a really tough game this week. I'm not saying that this means that they're going to skate through the rest of the season, but I don't know if we would have felt the same aura around it. I know we wouldn't have had they not been undefeated, had it not preserved an undefeated season. And I think I can't help but wonder what people from the outside look at with this Chiefs team and think, man, there's a lot of teams that will have their stadium saying, did Ralph really agree? He really agreed with my point there.
Goldie, you had multiple points of agreement here, unlike the way it usually is with the group of us.
But I think that they have to. There's a lot of teams that have left games against the Chiefs this season saying we had that team beat.
Oh, for sure. And Vahe, back to your point about the way Chiefs, the outcomes used to fall with the Chiefs. That was often in the playoffs too, right? That was the reputation of finding a way to lose in postseason games, which extended into the Andy Reid era with the with the loss to the Colts in 13, blowing the big lead, and the crazy losses to the Steelers and the Titans. Of course, this was Andy Reid era, pre-Patrick Mahomes quarterback. And that is
one thing, Blair, just to go back to this, is something maybe I'll look at later in the season, or it just seems to be something that it's easily forgotten. But in 2015, when they started 1-5, think about where they were. I mean, Andy Reid had 3 of his previous 4 seasons as a head coach. He had not made the playoffs. I don't have that number right here, but very, very mediocre record as Chiefs coach. And you guys know I think Blair you're the only one on this call who was there for the post-game podcast on a trash can in Minnesota. It's fascinating how different that is, right? Nobody was talking about Hall of Fame and this team, somehow becoming virtually unprecedented thing in a lot of ways in the NFL. It'd be interesting to go back to that at some point, I guess is what I'm saying, because that's the push-off point.
Yeah, and to your point, Blair, I think that you can see this team two different ways. We talked about it last week before this blocked field goal, which is like, if you come out with a power ranking and talk about how good teams are playing right now, and the Chiefs are not number one, I don't blame you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't blame you, because they are not blowing the doors off teams. They are not looking super impressive every week on offense. They're not coming up with defensive stops when they really need to at the end of games. So I don't blame people for that. But what you can't argue right now is that the Chiefs have the best path to winning another Super Bowl, because they are, unless something crazy happens, they're going to be the 1 seed. They're going to have a bye going into the playoffs. The AFC Championship is going to run through Arrowhead Stadium again, and then they're going to get whatever team potentially in the NFC, if they can make it through that road, and have another chance at a three-peat, or a chance at a three-peat. So, I think these two things can be true at the same time, which is like Andy Reid said it Monday on his press conference, where he said, look, he's happy to get it. It was an exciting victory, all those things, but he's got to get some things cleaned up in his house. You know what I mean? Like, they've got to fix some things offensively to be at the point where they want to be. But, Sam has mentioned this so much, like, they weren't where they wanted to be on Christmas last year, and then they won the Super Bowl. So, like, all the ingredients are there, all the coaching staff is there, and then the belief is there on top of it. Like you're talking about, Vahe, it reminds me of covering KU for so long at Allen Fieldhouse, where, they're down 16 at Allen Fieldhouse in the second half, and you just feel like one play is going to turn it for them. One thing is going to turn it for them. And that's where the Chiefs are right now. It's like, even when you're down to the last play, a 97.2% play, you got to execute that, or the Chiefs are still going to beat you. And that's what happened Sunday. So a lot of time and a lot of room to fix this. But I don't blame teams or people or analysts right now saying the Chiefs are not the best team in football, because right now they're not playing like it, even if they're coming up with some of these clutch plays.
Before we get into some of those issues that we need to tackle, is there anything left to say about the Chenal block? Is there anything we've learned since the post game on Sunday? Any new information about it? One thing that seems to stick out to me is Andy Reid saying on Monday that the importance of Justin Reid's role in that play. Did anybody else pick up on that?
Yeah, Sam, go for it.
Yeah. So I talked to Justin after the game, and he blocked a field goal last year against Denver. And the reason he blocked a field goal last year against Denver is he had the holder snap count down, or he had some sort of tell with the holder. So as he phrased it, they're not dummies over there, so they switched that. And a lot of teams this year, George Karlaftis told me about the fact that a lot of teams this year, they'll pick up something on film and they don't use it against the Chiefs. They switch it up against the Chiefs. I think that's just like one of the minor ways that a lot of teams play the Chiefs differently. There's more attention to detail during that week. Well, the reason Justin Reid blocked the field goal last year isn't just because he had the snap count down. It's also because he's so fast off the edge. His get off the line of scrimmage is so incredibly quick. The other players in the room talk about how quick he is off the line of scrimmage. Well, you don't often block that guy off the edge. You kind of maybe bump him with your elbow and just try and throw him off course a little bit. But you don't have the numbers, because you've got to have the snapper, you've got to have the holder, you've got to have the kicker. Like, the defense is going to have you outnumbered on that play. And so the guy that has the most room to cover, like, leave him the most unblocked. Well, after Justin Reid got the block last year, the Broncos couldn't do that this year. And so Justin Reid said before the snap, he can hear the Broncos offensive linemen screaming, 20's right there, 20's right there. Like, they're trying to pay attention to where Justin Reid is, because they've got to give him attention. Well, what that does is it leaves the middle with lanes, and teams that usually crowd just their offensive linemen together, the Broncos couldn't do that because they had to create some spacing on their left side of the line of scrimmage. It gave some guys one-on-one, and Leo Chenal is just much, much stronger than Alex Forsythe is. And Alex Forsythe has had some problems this year with staying on his feet on extra points and kicks. And I think it's not a coincidence that's who the Chiefs chose to try and line up against him. Because if you go back and look at it, it's not just that he plows through the line of scrimmage. The fact that he's able to still keep his feet, and not fall over as the guy right in front of him is falling over, and get the dive off. But having said that, if he doesn't block that, I think George Karlaftis does. Like, the Chiefs just absolutely plowed through that line of scrimmage, but it's all set up by the fact that the Broncos had to give some extra attention to a guy on the outside that most teams are allowed to just let roam free.
Just to amplify one quick thing that Jesse pointing to Sam on this, it's worth reading. It's worth telling our audience about. It's just, I thought you guys did a great job in the locker room adjusting. Think about how fast this happened. I mean, last play of the game, everybody's kind of got an idea what they're going to work on, and then, well, we really don't. And I don't think anybody wrote something with the detail that Sam had about how that play happened. And then Jesse's getting one-on-one with Wanye about important things, and we're kind of all over the place. But I guess I'm thumping our chests just because I think it was a really great example of getting to cover an important development together and on the fly, and kind of how the sausage is made.
It was a great story for sure. And I'm now that the way you explained it, Sam, it sounds like, and I don't know if Dave Tobe, special teams coordinator, would ever admit to this, but they were saving that for a moment like this and not say an extra point. They could have gone all out blocking and trying to attempt to block an extra point earlier in the game, but why burn that then, right? Or maybe
I wondered that, Blair. I wondered that same thing. Went back and saw the other kicks, and there's one where I thought that they did give sort of this same sort of effort. It's actually on the really long kick at the end of the half. But Lutz also, if you notice, he gets way too under that kick at the end of the half to where McCole Hardman could field it.
Yeah.
And so I actually wondered if that was also part of his calculus was, hey, I got two under that last ball. I'm going to make sure I don't get so far under this one. And but it's just thump right away to where it's hard to tell what kind of air he had under it. Lutz said after the game he thought he kicked it pretty well. But I would encourage people to watch the video of his interview, because you can see the devastation that the Chiefs create within other locker rooms whenever they beat them. And Sean Payton too. I mean, Sean Payton in his opening statement talked about how much this one's going to sting, and this one's gut wrenching, he called it. And you can really see the effect that teams have, or that the Chiefs have on other teams when, look, Andy Reid said the Broncos outplayed them. Sean Payton was adamant that they outplayed the Chiefs, and they lost the game anyway.
One quick thing that I thought was interesting from Drew Tranquil, I didn't get to use this in what I wrote, but he made it a point to talk about how terrible he felt for the Broncos, mostly because he's been there. And he understands, and he did talk to me about that too. He understands that kind of psychological blow. Like, you do everything you can to beat this team, and then, these kinds of things happen. And I'll clarify that he said he was elated for the Chiefs, but the point was, I think, to put us in the mind of what it's like to be on the other side of that. And I don't know how that carries over game to game, with other teams, but there's got to be some kind of psychological category for what that feels like to wonder when it's coming against the Chiefs.
Well, I think this week's is a perfect example of that with the Bills. I mean, the Bills have beaten the Chiefs in the regular season. They have not gotten over the hump in the playoffs. And you mentioned the 13 seconds earlier. Like, consider the ways that the Bills have lost to the Chiefs in the playoffs. They missed a field goal at the end of the game last time we were in Buffalo. Like, there, without a doubt, is an effect on other teams of how's it going to happen? I know it's coming at some point. How's it coming? How can you prepare for the unexpected?
Well, continuing down the road of us avoiding therapy week in Kansas City, I think one of the big issues would be left tackle. Listen, it is a big issue, but maybe not as loud as it might be otherwise. Jesse, what are the Chiefs going to do at that position? How do they find themselves in such a kind of quandary at left tackle?
Yeah, I mean, it's backup left tackle, if I'm just being completely blunt. I was watching some of those snaps where Kingsley barely touched the guy, and I think this has got to be part mental now. I mean, I don't know how. Again, I'm not an offensive line guru, but like to have a guy help you chip an edge rusher and to still not touch a guy. I don't know how that happens. It's almost like a glitch in the computer or something, that a glitch in the video game where your internet freezes or something. Yeah, this one's interesting because the Chiefs, listen, fans are fans, and they understand how this works, and they've seen the Chiefs sign Juju Smith-Schuster after he got released, from the Patriots and come in and have success. And they've seen the Chiefs take Kareem Hunt literally off his couch, as he will tell you in the locker room, and come in and be a leading rusher for the Chiefs. And so Donovan Smith's 31, and he's still out there, and he's on social media, pretty active, basically saying he's ready for a phone call. And David Bakhtiari is on social media in the last week, and he's begging Patrick Mahomes. He says, if my college team beats Texas Tech, I got to be your left tackle. He's ready to come play. I think there's probably a reason those guys are ready to come play. And I don't want to rewrite history. Donovan Smith was not amazing last year. He was very, very average and probably below average as a left tackle, which is why I think the Chiefs thought they could get away with either having Wanye or Kingsley come in and step in and have some youth and athleticism and be able to make up for, what Donovan Smith couldn't provide because of the injuries that have piled up on his body. But yeah, right now, I don't know. I don't know exactly their cap situation. Obviously it's hard to know if you're not inside the building on those sorts of things when you're looking and trying to look down the line, but that depth is a concern. And I don't know if the break glass in case of emergency is that if it just got so bad, you bump Tooney out to left tackle and you move Caliendo to left guard in that sort of situation. They've done that before, and it actually worked against the Bengals a couple of years ago. But right now they need a plan B for backup left tackle, and it doesn't seem like Kingsley is ready for that. So Andy Reid did give good news this week, said that it sounded like Wanye Morris's knee was going to be fine. So when he was in there, he was fine. He's had 2 pretty good weeks in a row, to be completely honest with you guys, 2 of his best weeks as a Chief. So as long as he stays in, it's okay. It's just if you're going for a three-peat with as much as is on the line as the Chiefs have, it sure seems like you need a better backup plan. And right now I don't know what it is for the Chiefs.
Well, I thought the most telling thing was the fact that they put him back in the game. And Jesse, that's the story that you got at after the game was how Wanye Morris, injured in the first quarter, ended up back in the game. And to me, that was the most telling information on what the Chiefs think of this situation.
Yeah. So I asked him, I said, why'd you go back in? Actually, it was very early in the second quarter that Wanye Morris went out, but he was out for 30 game minutes. We talked about this, Sam, in the press box, where he was kind of on the bike a little bit, was trying to keep it loose. And I said, why'd you go back into the game? And he said, well, Andy Heck came up to me and said, if the coaches needed me, they were going to come get me. And he said that they needed me. And so that speaks to, again, they can come to us in press conferences and say what they want to say. And Andy Reid's saying the right thing after the game. I want to point out Trey Smith was trying to say nice things about Kingsley Su Matia after the game. They're trying to do this the right way as a team. But like the reality is the reality. If a coach, offensive line coach is coming to you on the sideline with 10 minutes to go before the final drive and saying, we need you, get back in there. And that's what Wanye Morris does. That's the true serum. And right now, the Chiefs were desperate. Their offense can't function. Their offense cannot function with left tackle the way it was with Kingsley Su Matia in there. And some of the NFL Next Gen stats for you guys that maybe didn't see him. Nick Bonito of Denver had 11 matchups one-on-one against Kingsley. He created pressures on 4 of them. I mean, 37%. I mean, that's outrageous. That's an outrageous number. He went against Wanye 15 times, had 1 pressure off of that. So kind of going back through the film, there's some of these shots, some of these passes, some of these things that could happen if your left tackle can just hold his own. And this was not close to holding his own. You pointed this out, Sam, but Pro Football Focus grade for pass block for Kingsley was 48th out of 49 this week among tackles who would play at least half the snaps. So it's an untenable situation. And I know your friend Eric Eager, Sam, would talk about it being a weak link system, which means the offensive line, you can have 4 guys doing their job, but if one messes it up, the whole chain in the link is broken. And that's what we saw from the Chiefs offense for the second quarter and the third quarters. The whole link was broken because of the one weak link they had on the left tackle side.
Can you imagine another left? Can you imagine another left tackle in the NFL having a worse week than Kingsley had last week?
By the way, you guys will know this, but it seems to me that it's not very often somebody is called questionable by the Chiefs and comes back in the game. And I just to underscore your point, Jesse, usually when you hear questionable, it's like, well, they're not coming back.
Well, like McColl did it last week, right? It's more the
that's true.
It's more the sense that we saw him on the sideline with his helmet, and the Chiefs were just like, we better hold him out. And then Kingsley did not allow them to hold them out for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And his struggles are different than they were last time we saw him. To me, that's the most alarming thing is in week 2 when he got benched, there were signs of panic during the game. Here, he was just so far on the opposite end of the spectrum. Like Jesse said, twice he doesn't even touch Benito, like literally doesn't even get a hand on him. And I don't know that we've seen that, let alone happen twice. One time he's got inside help, and it's like, just take the guy on the outside here. And it was like he doesn't even move. He was so like dead set on not panicking that there was just no movement, no reaction to the play whatsoever. We've wondered what it's been like behind closed doors for Kingsley Su Matia in these last 6-7 weeks since he got benched. Like, we got a glimpse of it. Like, he is not mentally prepared to return to play right now.
You're making a great point, and it distinguishes it from a way I was looking at it. I mean, I was thinking about confidence. We were talking about it the other day, and I was thinking, well, we saw something in his range that it seemed to be just purely athleticism. His range was not there. But when you put it together like that, Sam, I think you can see the link in the thought, right? There's a tentativeness probably that's come with this, and that speaks to why that looks so off kilter.
Well, and I've got multiple choice here on other issues that the Chiefs experienced on Sunday. It was really strange to see Trent McDuffy have as poor a game as he had. I don't know how he graded out, but the touchdown, one of the touchdowns came his way, and just seemed to have a poor game overall. The Chiefs getting to the red zone 4 times and getting only 1 touchdown out of it, and then just a couple of missed throws by Mahomes. The deep ball to Xavier Worthy that was out of bounds a week earlier. The long pass to Xavier was probably Worthy's fault for not getting his feet down in bounds. This one was clearly Mahomes' fault. And then the one in the back of the end zone to Travis Kelce that would have given the Chiefs a bigger lead at the end, and forced the Broncos to go for a touchdown instead of a field goal. That was just almost alarming to see that. But again, because the Chiefs win the game, they become topics we discuss 20 minutes into a show and not 5 minutes into the show. But we need to address them, and take your pick: McDuffy, Mahomes, red zone. Which stands out the most?
I used to play Kiss, Marry, Kill on the radio. So Kiss is like one you think might be a fleeting problem, but still is a problem in the moment. Marry is like, oh my gosh, this might be a long-term thing. And Kill is like, that is totally not a thing. We're just killing that idea. So let's play Kiss, Marry, Kill here. Let's go. I'm killing the red zone because, as Sam talked about earlier, this is a thing that is fluky. And I think the Chiefs do have answers to the test. We saw that on the 4th and goal. I broke that down with Brett Tabo this week on our details about how he got so wide open. I think that's a thing that's going to go week to week. But the Chiefs before that had been so good the previous 3 or 4 weeks, whatever, 11 touchdowns on their 13 red zone drives, really good. So I think that's a fleeting thing. I guess I would kiss the Trent McDuffy thing just because there's a lot of pressure on him. They're going to put a lot of pressure on him because right now there's not a lot of faith in the other guys that are putting on the field. I mean, the injuries are really getting to them. And I asked Steve Spagnuolo about dealing with the cornerback depth, and he had kind of a telling quote where he said, like, we can't afford another injury there. And that was more dire than I think I've ever heard him talk about something like that. And so you can go back to some of the downs, and Steve Spagnuolo loves to be aggressive and loves to take chances with blitzes and stuff, but it's a lot harder when you're not sure about those guys on the back end. So that's a lot more pressure on McDuffy, and you're going to see more single coverage. And he does have some physical limitations that he has to deal with just because of who he is and his body type on those things. And I think we saw Cortland Sutton have a really good game against him. I don't want to marry the long-term problems against Patrick Mahomes necessarily, but when he starts to not feel comfortable in the pocket and the left tackle isn't doing well and he gets happy feet, and then all of a sudden the base is not under him, we see these missed throws, and those missed throws are alarming. I mean, that to me was the biggest part of this game. That's the most concerning, is that the Xavier Worthy throw down the sideline, that's a touchdown. He's got to hit it. You know what I mean? The Travis Kelce in the back of the end zone, that seals the game, or at least comes close to sealing it. You got to hit it. And he didn't. And I think that's why he ran around like an airplane at the end of the game, because he felt like he lost it, and Leo Chenal bailed him out. So I think that's the most concerning point of this week for the Chiefs, is they got to get Patrick Mahomes right, or this thing is not going to sail as far as they want it to sail.
To me, the only one I would reverse there is the coverage in the secondary is going to be affected by their inability to create pressure with 4 guys up front right now. Josh Uche they brought in to try and solve this problem. He's been absent these 2 weeks. He didn't play much 2 weeks ago, got a little bit more playing time this last week, just not to be found and as part of an effect on the game at all. And they have to blitz to create pressure, in which case you're going to see these guys lined up one-on-one a lot. And Trent McDuffie's their best. Like, they're going to have issues with the other guys a lot more than they have issues with Trent McDuffie, but they're either going to have to try and get pressure with 4, which they've been unable to do this year, or they're going to have to rely on some guys to cover that have not been in a lot of pressure situations all year.
I just really kind of redundant, but want to add that to Jesse's point, I thought that's a pretty astute observation about Patrick's celebration. I mean, he would have celebrated anyway, right? But the very first question to Patrick in the postgame was about obviously the blocked field goal, and he took it and ran with it as he usually does to criticize himself first. If I just made that play, we wouldn't have had to worry about it. So I think that makes sense to me, that there's a little extra sense of release and relief from him there. I have not looked at it often enough times yet to really understand the missed pass in the end zone. He did speak to it a little bit, but I couldn't tell if the ball sailed on him. He seemed to be talking about a defender that he anticipated being somewhere else and not adjusting to it. But
that's on the Kelsey one, yeah. The actually screws that play up to where he should pressure the back end of the end zone because that's where his zone is. Mahomes just anticipates he's going to do that, and so he's therefore has to throw the ball high, but the defender doesn't do that, and so the throw was just an easy throw to make.
Yeah, but it was so high. I mean, he wasn't trying to throw it away, obviously. I mean, it felt like when he threw it, it felt like it sailed on him, but I don't know. Maybe it really ended up where he thought he needed to send it, but that is what's kind of odd about the whole thing.
Maybe to continue the celebration thought, maybe he felt a little bit like Eric Hosmer in Game 1 of the World Series when Alex Gordon hit the home run. So Hosmer's error that gave the Mets the lead earlier in that game. So, all right, so big game, right? On Sunday, we're all going to be there for the Buffalo Bills. I can't wait. It should be a lot of fun. The Bills, 8-2. Their 2 losses came back-to-back on the road at Baltimore. They kind of got overrun there and then lost a close one at the Houston Texans. I'm not sure about the Texans as much as these days. They were really solid early and have tailed off a little bit here. So what's the sense of this game? Is this where it comes crashing down for the Chiefs? They are an underdog. It's not the first time, right? They were an underdog at San Francisco, but I think I saw it was up to 2.5, opened at -1 or +1.5 for the Chiefs. Now it's 2.5. What's the sense of this game?
Yeah, crashing down is too strong. If you lose your 9-1 and you're still ahead in the race for the 1 seed, but guys, we were there. We were driving up. I remember driving up kind of through the neighborhoods to the Buffalo Stadium last year, and there's 4 feet of snow on the roofs, and you get to the game and everyone's tailgating, and there's this real joy and optimism that this is going to be the year that they take down the Chiefs. And so you're right. I mean, this is a hex they got to get over. Like this is a city owning them, a team owning them, a quarterback owning them, a coach owning them. That's really difficult to deal with. I was trying to kind of think, 2.5 points, you get about 1.5 points for home field advantage. So basically Vegas is telling you that they believe that the Bills right now are better than the Chiefs by a point if it's on a neutral field. So I think that goes back to the earlier point of being in a great position, but maybe not the best team in the NFL right now if you're the Chiefs. But what would be the most crushing way for the Buffalo Bills to lose this game? And I just thought of it. Xavier Worthy is going to go for like 150 yards. So there you have it. There's my prediction. Xavier Worthy's really struggled here the last couple of weeks. Has dropped some passes, hasn't always kind of been on the same page as Patrick Mahomes, but Keon Coleman's not going to play. The guy that the Bills took, with the Chiefs traded pick that they got after they traded out of their pick, that the Chiefs took with Xavier Worthy. So, I guess I'll go ahead and predict it because that seems like how these games go, is that the Bills lose in the most crushing way possible. And to have the number 1 pick that they had, that they made the Chiefs pick, who hasn't been playing great, to now go off and have like 3 long touchdowns. I guess that'll be my official prediction.
I like it.
I guess it's easy to think that, okay, this is where the ball the dam breaks a little bit for the Chiefs and everything. But all these very points that we've been making are testimony to the mindset on both sides. And also, I do think the Chiefs have another gear, and I think there's a chance we'll see that this weekend. But if we're going to go with the sort of catalog of doom for Buffalo, what might there be? I'm struck by, we got talking about it after the game the other day, sort of the list of various ways they've won on these last plays. We haven't seen the pick six yet. And I think it's about time for Trent McDuffy to get his first NFL interception. So that's what I would envision, something just crushing like that.
Reminds me of the days at Big O Tires where you predicted Tyrann Mathieu pick six every week. I will point out that the Chiefs have lost this game 3 straight years. Like, Buffalo's a team that knows they can beat the Chiefs. They've beaten them 3 straight years.
All in Kansas City.
Yeah. And then the other thing I'd point out is that the Chiefs are now 4th in Vegas. Vegas views 3 teams as better than the Chiefs now, with Detroit, Baltimore, and Buffalo. So just an interesting thing for the best start that Patrick Mahomes has had. Vegas isn't buying it.
Just one other thing about that point, Sam, and that's what's kind of extra interesting about this game. You're right. The Bills have beaten the Chiefs, whatever it is, 3 straight now in regular season games.
Right.
And I think now at this point, though, the Chiefs can feel like, well, we lost them in the regular season. When it counts, let's see what it's like when it counts, if it comes to that again. And I think that's also a little twist on the whole tale here. It's not irrelevant if the Chiefs lose, but it's also, I'm not sure that exercises the demons.
That's actually really impressive by the Bills, because we know how Patrick Mahomes performs as an underdog, and we'll hear all those stats this week as well. But he's really good in these situations. He's really motivated and seems to play at his best in these situations. So we'll see if that comes through again on Sunday.
And if the Chiefs get behind, doesn't mean anything. In 7 games this year, they've trailed at some point, or maybe 8 of the 9 they've trailed at some point, twice by double digits. And of course, they've won them all. So, all right, great conversation as always, you guys. Really appreciate it. Big thanks to Randy Mason and to Monty Davis for producing this podcast. And we'll be back next week on SportsBeat KC, where we talk sports in and around Kansas City.